G'day guys, Marcus here from Get Car Tech. Today in the workshop, we've got a 2015 Nissan Navara NP300. We're going to be installing our newly developed flagship wireless CarPlay system for the NP300s. Now today, this Navara has the factory 5-inch screen. We're going to be retaining the steering wheel button controls and the factory reverse camera, but this system is also compatible with the NP300s that came with the basic radio with no screen, and also the Navaras that came with the factory 7-inch unit with the touch screen. We'll have more compatibility info available on our website. We've got a direct link to this product in the description. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to our customer support team. Now, I know we say this a lot, but truly, these Navaras are an absolute piece of cake to work on. It's going to take us about 5 minutes to get the existing radio out and 30 minutes to complete the entire job. And we truly believe that anyone can do this, even with no technical knowledge. You'll see in a second just how easy these are to work on. You also don't need any special tools, just a Phillips head screwdriver and a trim tool, which we include in our kits. Let's start the install. As always, this kit is fully plug and play, but with the Navara DIY kits, we take it an extra step further and we fully pre-assemble the unit ready for installation. You don't have to worry about doing any of the wiring at the back of the unit. All you're going to have to install is the microphone in the A-pillar. We're going to be retaining the factory USB port, all the factory steering wheel controls, and the factory reverse camera. If your Navara doesn't have a factory USB port, or if it's broken, we also include this generic USB input, which you can route anywhere in the car. And we also include a trim tool for your convenience. We're going to use this in just a second. Being that we're working on a Navara with the 5-inch factory screen today, we have a wiring harness to match. Now, your wiring harness, if you have the more basic Navara radio without the screen, or with the factory 7-inch touchscreen, your harness will look similar to this, but it won't be exactly the same. But principally, the install methodology is identical. All we're doing is unplugging all of the connectors on the back of the factory radio and plugging in any that fit into these harnesses. All right, here we are inside of the NP300. This is the factory 5-inch screen, but it doesn't matter which radio you've got, the disassembly process is identical. So we're going to be removing these two pieces of silver trim either side, and we're going to be using the included trim tool here to make that nice and easy. So to remove these, I like to start from the top. We just sneak our trim tool under anywhere we can fit it under, and we just want to unclip one of the clips that are holding it in. And once you get one out, you sort of just work your way from top to bottom, and then eventually you'll get to the point where all the clips are released. Now these pieces of trim do have this strange mechanism, so once you fully release all the clips, you basically just have to lift it out of this slot, and we're going to do the same thing on the right side. Sneaking our trim tool under the top, then once we have one clip free, the rest should come pretty easily. And then again, we're just getting this weird key mechanism out. We've just discovered that someone's been in here before us. So there's a couple of screws missing, but I'll just tell you the ones we need to remove. So there's 6 screws that go into the black plastic trim that we'll need to remove here. We can see some of them are already removed. Then once all 6 of those are removed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then there's a remaining 4 screws total on either side that hold the radio in. Those are a bit more recessed, and we're going to use a magnet tool here just to catch any bolts and stop them from dropping. But if you do lose any of those bolts, it's actually not the end of the world, because we don't require the 4 bolts at the back to secure our new system. So we'll start with all the screws that we have access to here. We're just going to use a Phillips head, nice and easy, and just grab it before you have a chance to drop it. Use your cup holder to store your screws, and we'll skip ahead to when we've got all of those out. All right, so now that those 10 screws are out, the radio and the climate panel are free to come out. We do have to remove the climate panel at the same time, just because of the way these cars are built, but we can basically just get our fingers in behind the radio and the whole thing will just pop out as one piece. Once you pop out the entire radio and climate panel piece, we can actually separate the climate piece out just by pushing our thumbs on the face of the radio and pulling the climate like this, and then that will pop out. That's just attached to the radio with these clips. We can just leave the climate panel sort of hanging there. If you want, you can disconnect it, but it's really not necessary. All right, so with that, we can pull our radio out and we can get a peek at what's going on behind here. Now, someone's definitely already been back here because I can see that the factory USB input has been unplugged, but that's no worries at all. All we're gonna do is every single connector that we can see plugged in, we're just gonna unplug. These are all pressable with your thumb. Just find the release mechanism on each one and release each one with your thumb. And now this is our radio antenna cable. We press this little tab on the side here to free this one up. And if you struggle with any of these connectors, you can use a flathead screwdriver to press the release mechanism. It can make it easier. But that's it, that's our factory radio out. All we need to do now is plug in our new one, screw it in, and we'll be good to go. All right, so funnily enough, this car has already had an external microphone installed on it. So the previous owner likely had an aftermarket system in there, but we're still gonna show you anyway how to install one, even though we technically don't have to install one here. So this is the microphone you'll receive in our kits. We include these little clips so they can fit on the piece of trim that covers the A-pillar. So where the A-pillar meets the roof lining, all we're gonna do is we're gonna grab about 1 inch of slack on our cable here. And then we're gonna tuck that cable into that piece of trim using the clip, and then push it all the way down so it sits nicely like that. And because we gave ourselves about 1 inch of slack here, we can articulate that microphone in any direction to optimize phone call quality. This one here, it looks pretty good, but it's kind of just flopping around and it's pointing towards the passenger. We definitely want this one pointing towards the driver. And now all we do to finish this off is we use our trim tool to hide the cable. And once we get to the weatherproof lining, we just use our fingers to lodge that one down. And we'll come around the other side of the car and show you how to finish this off. Now, using your trim tool, you just want to push this cable, and there's really no exact method here. All you're trying to do is just conceal the cable. We can see some of the previous work done over here that's visible, but we're going to make sure our microphone cable is completely invisible. So we just tuck it in like that. And then once we get to this point, we're going to grab the end of our microphone cable and we're just going to loop it over the bonnet release hatch just so it doesn't snag on any cables down here. So we won't really show that on camera, but you're just looping it over that bonnet release hatch. And then once you get to this point, all we need to do is get this microphone cable up to this void space here. We're going to use a cable pulling tool, but if you have someone helping you, you can just pass them the microphone cable to make it nice and easy. Okay, so here's our cable pulling tool. It sounds fancy, but it's really not. All it is a big long stick. What we're going to use this for is poking it down into a space that we can pull our microphone cable through. So I can see a gap down here. It's going to be hard to see on camera, but I'm just poking this tool down, and then we can see that that stick is poking out in the driver's side footwell. All we're going to do now is tie our microphone cable to the end of that cable pulling tool. If you have someone helping you with the install, again, you can just hand each other the cable. It's nice and easy. If you don't have anyone helping you, you can use something like a wire coat hanger. All you need is a long stick that you can pull through. All right, so over here, really simple. We're just going to tie a very simple knot just to secure that cable lightly to our pulling tool. And then if we pull our tool through, with it will come our microphone cable. Now, during this step, the most important part is to make sure you do not loop the cables behind any of the pedals for obvious reasons. You do not want a cable interfering with the function of these pedals. So make sure when you're pulling the slack through that you clear it of any pedals. And once you get it to this point, we're going to use one of the screws that we took out of the factory radio to secure the slack on this cable so it doesn't droop in the future. All right, so grabbing one of the silver screws that came out of the radio brackets, we're just gonna, I like to use this one up the top right corner, just screw that screw in almost all the way. We're trying to leave enough gap for our cable to loop over. So we're gonna loop our cable like this, and we're gonna pull nice and tight so we got all the slack out of that cable. We can't see any down here in the driver's side footwell, which is great. And then once we're happy that we don't have any more slack to get rid of, we can very lightly tighten that screw to the point where you can't tug it out. Now, we don't want to over tighten this screw because we'll crush the microphone cable, but there's a Goldilocks zone where we got a nice amount of hold that's going to keep that microphone in place in the future, and then without crushing the cable. And we can see here we got a fair bit of excess on that microphone cable. We're going to use a zip tie to neaten that up. All right, now the fun part, we get to connect our wiring harness. So I'm just going to use the gear stick here to sort of lightly rest our screen so we can make some of these connections Now we'll start with the microphone input because it's fresh in the memory. This is our microphone input cable. It's labeled mic to make it nice and easy. And with our cable that we just neatened up with a zip tie, we're just going to plug that one in until it clicks. Now we can move on to our USB retention cable. That's this one here. That's going to plug into this connector. This is the factory USB port input cable. So by plugging this one in, our aftermarket unit will communicate with that factory USB port, so you can use that for wired CarPlay. Now we are going to add some electrical tape just to secure that connection, but we won't show that on camera. All right, now we have our factory radio antenna cable. We're going to be plugging this one in to this gray port, and we're just going to have a look and make sure we're matching them up to the orientation. All these connectors should go in nice and easily. You shouldn't have to force anything, and we're listening for that click. We want all our connectors to make a click sound, even if it's subtle. That means it's secure. Now, for these 5-inch screen Nissans, we're only going to be using 2 ports on our main harness here. It's this one with the big thick yellow cable, and it's this one here that the reverse camera cable comes off of. But you really don't have to overthink it. These are all keyed connectors, so nothing will fit where it doesn't belong. So basically, if you find a connector and it fits, you are doing it right. So we're going to plug that big one in first, and then this one here into this connector. Just visually line them up, and that's done. Now you notice that we have 2 connectors that aren't plugged in. These are for different Nissans. We don't require these, so we can just leave those sort of hanging. If you want, you can zip tie those to other parts of the harness to prevent rattle, but we're not going to do that today. All right, that's all the connections made, believe it or not. We are ready to put our screen back in. At this stage, you just want to make sure there's nothing snagging on anything, and we can push our whole unit in. And don't worry, we'll be securing this with those 4 screws we took out earlier. But at this stage, we can probably even put our climate control panel back in and begin testing. All right, let's start this thing up and test this one out for the first time. We're not going to start the engine. We don't need to. We can just put the car in accessory mode, which is when the entire dash lights up. And there we can see that beautiful Nissan boot logo. And we're straight into the main user interface of our unit. Now you'll notice that the screen makes a beeping sound every time you touch it. Very annoying, but it's very useful for testing that the audio is working upon first startup. So we can turn that off straight away. We'll go into settings and we'll just turn off keytone. Now we ship these units pre-configured, so out of the box your steering wheel buttons will work, as well as your reverse camera, which you can see looks really nice on this new screen. This is the factory camera, but it looks twice as good as on the factory screen because it's so much bigger and brighter. Now we'll test one more function before we jump into CarPlay. We'll just double check we've got radio signal. Now most of these stations will be static because none of them are tuned to your local area, but we'll just scroll across to a local station and just test that we've got radio reception.
SUVs.
Beautiful. Great. Let's connect a phone to CarPlay. All right, before we show you CarPlay and screen mirroring, because we're confident everything's working, the sound's working, the steering wheel buttons are working, the reverse camera is working, we're confident that we can put everything back together. So just for the purposes of this video, we're going to put these trim pieces back in. So all we're going to do now is install the 6 black screws that we took out and pop those silver trim pieces back in. We won't show that on video. It's super easy. Just follow what we've done in reverse. Now, I just thought I'd quickly mention, because our frames use the 4 screws that the factory unit uses, it's really nice and secure. It's not just held in by clips like other units on the market. This one's held in by 4 screws. That thing is not going anywhere. All right, let's connect to wireless CarPlay. Now, the pairing process is the same for Android phones. These units also work with wireless Android Auto. In today's video, we're going to be showing you on an iPhone. So jump into your Bluetooth settings. There's going to be a device called Nissan _ and then some letters and numbers. The letters and numbers are randomly assigned to the unit, but click it and then hit pair, allow, and there'll be one more CarPlay prompt. You have to make sure you hit connect to this one. Now, my phone connects to CarPlay devices all the time, so sometimes it doesn't show that CarPlay prompt, but just leave your phone screen on. There should be a third prompt that appears. Just make sure you hit agree. But if CarPlay pops up, you know you've done it correctly. We can see there wireless CarPlay is running beautifully on that first connection. Our steering wheel buttons are working as well. We've got some cool apps in here like Waves, Spotify, We've also got an ODB reader, so you can plug in a Bluetooth ODB reader and get car data out onto the screen inside of CarPlay. We've also got some cool widgets inside of the latest version of iOS 26 CarPlay. We can see the weather here in Tingalpa, some reminders, a nice little clock widget as well. Now, if you're watching this video, we already assume you know what Apple CarPlay is and what you're in for, but a quick overview. Basically, CarPlay is really good at navigation, music, and sort of phone-related functions. We've got Google Maps here, which looks really nice on the screen. We can even prompt Siri by pressing this button down here. If we hold that, navigate to the Gold Coast using Google Maps. There we go. We've got control of CarPlay using Siri as well. All our steering wheel functions are also working in here. We can turn voice prompts in navigation off and on. But yeah, CarPlay runs really, really nicely on these units at 60 frames per second. Now that this phone is paired to the CarPlay unit, it's paired for good. So that was a one-time pairing process. And I just want to show you how quickly our units boot up from scratch and are ready to use inside a wireless CarPlay. So I'm going to lock the car here, just so the electronics go fully to sleep, so you can see what a real world sort of fresh boot up looks like. So unlock the car again, turn the electronics on, and again we see that beautiful Nissan boot logo. It's going to take the unit about 6 seconds to boot up, and because we've already paired the phone, that wireless CarPlay connection is going to occur automatically, and you'll see that in a second here. We're not even touching the phone, it's just sitting in the cup holder. And there it is, straight into wireless CarPlay, ready to use. Okay, so that's wireless Apple CarPlay. That's the main feature of our units, and that's what these do best. We've designed this system from the ground up to do CarPlay really, really well, because we understand 99% of people just want reliable wireless Apple CarPlay, and that's what our units deliver. Now we'll go through some other functions here on the home screen. So this music app will play media files off of a USB. So you can plug in a USB drive down here and play music files, old school style, off of a USB. Radio is very obvious, it's just local radio stations. Again, these won't be tuned, but if you want to save a station, you can hold down on one of these slots and that will save that station, and you can cycle through them with your steering wheel buttons. We've also got CarPlay, Android Auto, which we've covered, and we've also got video over here. Same thing as the music app. If you plug in a USB drive with some MP4 files, you can technically watch movies in the system. We'll scroll across to settings here. Inside of settings, again, we pre-configure these units, so most of the functions work out of the box. There's just some personal preference stuff in here that you might want to change, such as the brightness or the sound profile. We set these to rock out of the box, but you have a lot of control over different bands of the frequency range, and you can really tweak this to get a lot of life out of your factory speakers. Now, moving down, we can change the date and time, which we're not going to cover here. And we've also got some wallpapers in here. We went with the Brisbane city wallpaper. We've also got Sydney in here, Melbourne, and some other sort of generic head unit wallpapers, but we'll stick with Brisbane here. All right, so let me show you how our screen mirroring function works. So you can't use wireless CarPlay and screen mirroring at the same time because they both use your phone's Wi-Fi antenna to function. So to use screen mirroring and to disconnect from CarPlay, what we're going to do first is turn off our Bluetooth. That's going to stop the CarPlay connection from occurring. And then once we've turned off our Bluetooth, we also want to toggle our Wi-Fi. And it's going to tell us, hey, if you toggle Wi-Fi, it's going to disconnect CarPlay. But in this instance, we do want to disconnect CarPlay to free up the Wi-Fi antenna to connect for screen mirroring. Now, inside of the screen mirroring interface, you want to go into your Wi-Fi settings, and there's going to be a network called Nissan_Air. Make sure you connect to the one with the air at the end, which is this one here. And the password to this network is just 8 8s. The password's also visible down the bottom left corner of the unit as well. And then once we get that blue tick, last step, scrolling down, pressing our screen mirroring shortcut button here, and then selecting Nissan. You can see that it appears as if it's an Apple TV. And boom, there it is. That's our phone screen on the head unit. Now we can see YouTube is working nicely in the screen mirroring. It's super, super snappy, real-time connection. Now if we click on a video and we turn it sideways, we'll see that works on the system. And all of the audio is coming through the car's speakers, so you can watch media using screen mirroring and use plenty of apps. Now to stop screen mirroring, all we do is we hit this button here, we hit stop mirroring, and then we just turn our Bluetooth connection back on. And by turning the Bluetooth back on, that's going to allow our CarPlay connection to occur again. And we'll see here that happens automatically. Once the phone connects to the Bluetooth of the unit, that CarPlay sequence starts. And we're straight back into wireless CarPlay. There it is, guys. In just 30 minutes, we've installed the Get CarTech wireless CarPlay and Android Auto system for the Nissan Navara NP300. Now, if you want to pick up the exact same kit that you saw in this video, they're available on our website, getcartech.com. They come with our successful install guarantee, which you can read more about at our website. And we ship these kits from our workshop over the other side of that divider. We have them in stock in Australia. We do not drop ship. These are our own system, and they come with access to our Australian phone support. We stand by these products. We believe they're the best unit out there for the NP300s, and we think you'll find the same thing if you choose to buy with us. Thanks for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.